Welcome to scigest, your fortnightly serving of digestible science from plant and food research.
Hi everyone, I'm Ian Letham. Welcome to the very first instalment of scigest. It's a podcast channel where we aim to make the wide-ranging science of food production, supply and security, well, digestible. So over the coming weeks and months, we'll be posting interviews with scientists who are doing some pretty amazing and interesting things in areas such as bioprotection, food innovation, breeding and genomics, and sustainable production. Maybe primary sector science, it can be a bit overlooked at times perhaps, but its outputs have really important social, economic and environmental dimensions, and these can directly impact on our own individual well-being. So it's far-reaching and relevant work, and so I guess with this podcast channel, we want to do our own little bit to get the voices of the scientists working in this space out there. So before launching the series, we thought it might be nice actually if you got to meet the team of interviewers for our podcast channel. There's 5 of us, 4 as it happens, living, breathing scientists themselves. I'm the odd one out. While I work in science communications, my academic background's actually in philosophy. But I think that's okay. It's an interesting area. It covers quite a bit of ground, and it tends to make one a bit interested in a whole bunch of stuff anyway. But anyway, look, that's me. Let's meet the others. Although I should say we have one absentee, Di Brewster, who is a research technologist in our biological chem and bioactives team. She's away today, but the rest of us are here. We're huddled around a mic as we speak, and by that I mean a microphone, not actually someone who goes by the name of Mike. So who have we got here?
Introductions. Well, thank you, Ian, and it's good to be here. My name's Blue Plunkett. I'm a research associate at Plant and Food Research, and I work in the molecular lab in the colour and health team. We look at trying to learn how plants control what colours they generate and what health components they make, and try to make it better and more useful for what humans use it for.
Very good.
Kia ora tātou. My name's Brogan McGrail, and I'm a research associate at Plant and Food Research. And I work within 2 teams, so host microbe interactions and epidemiology disease management. And basically we look at how microbes that cause diseases interact with various plant hosts.
Hi, my name is Andrew Dare. I'm a scientist in the same group as Blue Plunkett in the Colour and Health group. And I work on health compounds in apple, particularly one called fluorizome, which is an anti-diabetic compound. So it's at that interface between human health and plant compounds, really.
Very good, thanks everyone. Well, I should point out too that we actually, on the team, we have a production manager who takes care of the equipment and the technical aspects of recording. We'll affectionately call him Martin, the AV guy. So he's sitting there with his headphones on, looking a bit concerned right now, wondering perhaps what I'm going to say next, but would you like to wave to the mic, Martin? Just there he goes, wonderful. And just on the topic of production too, in fairness to Martin, and not wanting to cast any aspersions on his production ability, I should point out there's a great big crane sitting outside our window right now as we speak. One of our buildings here is having a bit of a facelift. We weren't expecting the crane, so if you do hear some random crane noise or cursing from workmen, please ignore. Okay, so maybe just to kick off then, so maybe just unpack a little bit more about what you do with your science. You've touched on it a little bit, Blue. Can you unpack maybe a little bit more about the kind of things you do maybe on a day-to-day, week-to-week kind of basis?
Yeah, sure. So day-to-day we sort of balance between working in the lab and then going back to our desk and trying to interpret the results we've generated. We work on a few core crops. Is the main stuff that I do is around apple with Andrew, and some strawberry and blueberry and kiwi fruit, and it's looking at sort of how the DNA is controlled at the molecular level, and so we're learning about how the regulation occurs to try and understand it, and then once we understand it, we can try and improve it in some way.
Okay.
I don't know if that's how you would summarize.
Andrew, is that how
what
you would
do,
summarise
Andrew?
it?
Yeah, no, I guess trying to summarise like 12 years of your life and
Into
3 or
one
4
sentence.
media-friendly sound bites.
Only 12.
Yeah, it's probably more than that. No, a lot more than that. I just don't want to admit to it. I guess we balance working lab work with writing papers, writing research grants, trying to get money in, because that's always an ongoing battle with scientists.
You greedy scientists, right? You're always after money.
It's an expensive business. Yeah. It does consume quite a bit of cash in terms of funding applications and stuff.
Right.
That eats up a lot of your time.
Yep. Oh no, that's good. So you think Blue's nailed it there? How we would do?
Yeah, we all work in it. We've all got our little specialist areas that
Yep.
we work on. Blue's kind of, I guess you're more of a generalist. You're spread over a whole lot of different projects and you're juggling a lot of things all at once. So
I suppose, that could be safe to say for the moment.
Yeah.
Until I get good at something, then I can do something.
you're good at everything. That's your problem. I'm only good at one thing.
Wow, flattering. We've actually got it on tape. How about that? Brilliant. Brogan, so do you want to unpack a little bit more about what you do, what your day-to-day, week-to-week looks like?
Yeah, sure. So, sort of similar to Andrew and Blue. So I look a lot at the DNA sort of level interactions between diseases or microbes that cause disease and the plants. So actually what's going on at a molecular level, at the DNA level, between these microbes and the plants.
So when you say the DNA level, how is there an interaction between the microbe and the plant at the DNA level? So something in the DNA is expressing itself in the microbe or in the plant that they each pick up on. Is that sort of what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly, basically. So, plants can't move, so they're sort of standing there, and then you'll have a microbe that'll come and land on the plant. And then as soon as that microbe lands there, and it can, penetrate into the plant somehow, then they start to recognise each other at that DNA level.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
I know it's interesting stuff. So, how did you all get into science though? Did you all have a sort of a eureka moment where you thought, this is it, I'm going to be a scientist? Or did you sort of stumble in it? Did you, Andrew, maybe you wanted to be a racing car driver or something like that, and you...
Yeah, it's not quite as noble as that, to be honest. I had a crush on my sixth form biology teacher, so I took a lot of attention. And I went to class pretty regularly and took a lot of notes, and I think that set me off on a track,
Oh, wow.
a trajectory to doing science at university, and then it follows
Okay.
from there.
I'm sure there's a lot we can
Noble
unpack.
cause, yeah.
Blue, any crush there that on a
I
teacher
didn't
that
really
led you?
have the crush on the teacher or any particular eureka moment. I suppose I was always interested as a child in what goes on in the world and trying to understand things a little bit, and it seems to be that science kind of has a lot of impact on humans' progress and things like that. So I thought that would be an interesting space to end up working, and it's ended up that I work here in plant research now.
Nice,
So
nice.
it's cool.
So you didn't want to be a racing car driver or anything?
Well, I still kind of do want to be.
All right.
It's not out of the cards yet.
Not with that vehicle.
Yeah, we've seen your car.
I'll have to get a different car.
I'm not sure what it is. I should point out to the listeners how would you describe it, Blue? Your
Stupid or ridiculous is how I sort of lead, but I guess a mini monster truck is how it's a technical term.
It's very difficult to get in and out of.
Yeah,
What
it's
sort of car is
ridiculous.
it?
It's a Toyota Hilux, but
haven't
it's
seen his car?
lifted.
No.
I kind of hide it
Check it
away
out.
so people don't see it.
Look
car
out the
park.
window at the crane out there. The size of the wheels on that crane. That's kind of the size of the wheels, I guess, on Blues.
There you go.
Yeah, probably. Probably bigger. And Brogan, how did you find your way into a career in science?
I always liked science at school, and really once I got to uni, it was just a matter of sort of refining that, really.
Yeah.
And I think I really started to really like plants and microbes when I got to uni.
Okay.
And I took a paper, and you start to realise how important they are for our everyday life.
Yes.
Oxygen and
Yes.
stuff like that. It's amazing how important plants and microbes are. So.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my next question, I guess, is what sort of lights you up about science, or more particularly what you do. So I guess you had touched on it there, Brogan. You became you had this awareness of gosh, here are these plants, they're kind of just sitting there, right, but they're actually serving this really important function. Would that sort of be fair? That was sort of how you know, something that sort of lights you up about what you do, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
It is amazing, like what you say, because, you know, if you think about it, they make the oxygen and they provide all our food, even if it's by feeding the animals that we then eat,
Yes.
and all our clothes are made out of plants, so
Yeah.
and all drugs essentially come from plants.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
medicine and things, so
Yeah.
it's quite hugely important.
Yeah.
that
Massively
humans like.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hugely overrated. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Even
like-
oil and petrol, right? It's dead
Yeah,
plants.
yeah.
Yeah.
But what excites you to get out of bed in the morning? You know, to say, okay, this is. I'm assuming there's something. I'm hoping there's something.
Yeah. Well, for me, I guess it's coffee.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Which is a plant.
Which is also a plant.
Yeah, yeah,
Well
yeah.
spotted. I guess it's the ability. It's an unusual job because you get the ability to contribute new understanding and new knowledge to the world, and that sounds very pompous.
Yeah,
but it does. But it's not like normal jobs where you're just doing a routine where you process stuff, you turn it around, and the next day you've got the same set of things to do.
Yeah, yeah.
You're kind of on that edge of human understanding, I guess, and that's just quite a cool thing to be part of. Even though it is a grind and it is sometimes really monotonous, it is. The outcome is contributing new knowledge, and that's cool.
Yeah, and I guess
Yeah,
what you're
definitely.
doing, Andrew, is quite interesting because it's got this health dimension to it as well. I mean,
Yeah, which is kind of quite hot at the moment. I mean, you just have to look in the paper. We kind of a whole lot of emphasis on nutrition and overnutrition, too many nutrients in our diets. You know, we're getting too much, you know, sugar, for example.
Yes.
So we've got this epidemic of type 2 diabetes. We've got all kinds of stuff going on. So it is a quite a hot area to be
Yeah.
involved in. So
Yeah.
it's good to be in that interface, I guess, that area.
Blue, what excites you? Is it,
Yeah,
is
well-
it because you have to get up and get to work, otherwise Andrew's on your case? Is that how it works?
No, it's not like that at all, but it's very similar to what Andrew just said in the sense that, you know, you kind of get to work on the boundaries of what is known and what is not known, so that's quite cool. As far as the job goes, it provides a lot of interesting things that you get to be able to do, and as far as the job goes, there's lots of cool things about it, but one in particular that comes to mind is how, like, just watching and observing how much better humans or how much better we're getting at generating, like we're being able to do a lot better and do a lot more a lot quicker with the research that gets done. So things like experiments these days contain sequencing, so part of your experiment will be sequencing the whole genome of a species, and it's just amazing how that much data can be generated and how we're learning how to understand how it works. So that part of it's quite fun too.
And Brogan again, so what's cool about your job?
Yeah, definitely similar to Andrew and Blue. I think I really just like the fact that every day you learn something new, or, you know, there's that real learning is so important to what we do, whether it's new techniques or a new exciting publication, and it's cool to be able to tie it back into what you're doing as well. So yeah, I really like the learning part of the job.
And you like getting up for coffee as well, though?
Yeah,
Is that-
coffee.
Yeah,
Coffee
yeah.
is very
Where would we
important.
be without that?
We run on it. Yeah.
Oh no, that's great. What are your feelings? Your thoughts about how scientists or science is perceived out there? I mean, I guess there's that sort of stereotype, isn't there? Scientists kind of generally male, bearded, you know,
Crazy
plotting-
white hair like
exactly,
Einstein or something.
plotting something in the lab with chemicals. What do you?
Yeah, well, there's that type of stereotype, and I don't know, you know, some people think of that when they think of a scientist, they'll think of someone like that, but what we see, or at least what I see, it's just a bunch of regular people. It's is that what you see, Andrew? Regular
I
people?
don't see any regular people around
Yeah,
here.
maybe it's not quite the case.
So social dysfunction would be a fair sort of stereotype of the
I don't like the way this interview is tracking now. It's-
I just thought it's starting to get really good. But
Brogan, do you want to jump in? You don't fit the stereotype, do you? So
No, yeah, I don't know. I guess, yeah, there definitely is that general perception around what scientists are. And even still, I tell people what I do and they're like, what? So I think the more you talk to people about it, the less that stereotype persists, I guess.
when you say you talk to people and they go, what? Do you think part of that too is it's the challenge of not just necessarily the perception people might have of scientists, but actually communicating your science? So do you find that can be tough sometimes to actually communicate fundamentally what you do and sort of ways that...
Definitely. Even if you have... I've tried lots of different strategies to communicate what I do on a daily basis. And I mean, even just talking about DNA and genes to people, it's sort of, you get a wall straight away. So trying to break down the things that we work on a daily basis and make it more accessible and more relatable, that's a constant challenge, I think, to communicating any sort of science.
Yeah. What about you guys?
Yeah, well, that's a cool point, because a lot of like the research that we do, we present it between each other and to other scientists, and that's important because we need to understand what everyone's working on and make sure you don't do the same experiment twice or something. But I think it's also important to try and involve everyone else in presenting science as well, and I think that this is why something like a podcast can be helpful to try and bridge that gap that might be being missed sometimes.
Yeah. How about you, Andrew? Do people understand what you're talking about?
No. Is that just me, or is that what I'm working on? Probably a bit of both. I think the thing is that the technology is changing so quickly. We find it hard to keep up.
Can barely keep
so
up.
For a layperson to understand the aspects around, for example, genetic engineering, genetic modification, and this new technology, this CRISPR-Cas technology, I mean, we're only just getting our heads around it. So it's a challenge for us to understand it and then communicate it in a meaningful way. And scientists don't like to make black and white statements about technology or things, so any kind of vagueness is interpreting as we don't understand everything, and that's a danger signal for people. Right. And I think that's one of the big things I have trouble with communicating, is that they say, well, if you don't understand it all, why are you even doing it?
Right. So and the thought being that just because you don't necessarily understand something, that shouldn't necessarily translate sort of into the public's mind that it's dangerous or it's mysterious, or
at least we know what we don't understand.
It's kind of a good thing.
Branches of society which aren't even aware of what they don't understand.
Right.
And better than claiming that you do understand when you don't as well, which scientists are often careful not to do.
What about then science for the primary sector? Because I think myself, when I read maybe science stories in general media, they perhaps tend to be technology related or human health related, certainly things to do with new apps and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on maybe primary sector science? I mean, as I sort of mentioned at the beginning, it's far reaching and really directly impacts our day to day.
Yeah, well, especially for New Zealand, I suppose, because a large portion of our economy is from primary industries, so it's a huge sort of commercial space and important for New Zealand, and that's why it's good for us to be able to work in, because the research that's done in New Zealand tends to be to support those industries, so that's where the work is, and like you say, they're very important industries. And the tech stuff, I suppose, is very interesting, but there's not too many engineering or high-tech labs and things like that in New Zealand that I know of anyway. Have you heard
No,
of
I
any?
mean, compared to us, I mean, we're 800 employees in our company, and Ag Research has got, a decent number as well, so we're big employers and we're a big part of science in New Zealand, but I guess we're seen as the less sexy science compared to maybe technology or cancer biology, for example, or human health stuff.
I think it's kind of my point. I think that in some respects it's sort of, it seems sort of less sexy somehow, but in actual fact, and this is, I guess, the objective of this podcast series is to actually unpack some of this and show that, well, that this is actually pretty stretchy science and quite interesting stuff, and is having a real impact. So, Brogan, any thoughts on that?
No, to be honest.
No,
it's fungi sexy.
Yeah.
So hard sell.
So fungi aren't that sexy, not sexy science.
I don't know. I think they're quite amazing, to be honest. Like, you sort of think that fungi are cool, basically.
Yeah, okay, no, that's good. Have you got the t-shirt that says as much? Oh no, that's good. So what are some of the challenges then? Like, Andrew, you mentioned already that you're finding that things are moving so rapidly that it's quite difficult to keep up. Does that affect the direction of your research? Because obviously this research can take some time, can't it, before it starts showing results, but does that throw a real spanner in the mix that this technology is moving so quickly? Is that
your
problematic?
results might be outdated by the time the next breakthrough comes. You might be using technology which is not going to be used in 5 years' time. Yeah, sure, but your alternative is you wait for something, something to happen. So we're continually changing how we do things, I guess, and continually responding to the new developments and looking at them and saying, well, can we use this technology? Can we use it on the plants we're working on? We even adopt stuff from human biology and stuff and try and translate that into the crops that we work in. So we're always trying to change things all the time. You've always got to be on that kind of front part of the wave, I guess.
Yeah. We're actually currently in the process of recording our very first podcast series. Now, Blue, you're doing the hosting for that. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that series?
Yeah, so the first series that we have is around biosecurity and bio protection. So we interview research scientists who are working on problems in those areas around border control and stopping pests and toxins that we don't want moving in and out of or past New Zealand borders and things like that. And so in episode 1 we start by speaking with Dr. Andrew Krylicek about some of his work around biosensors. So he's looking at using insect models to generate sensors as detector systems for some of these compounds and risk things involved with biosecurity and bioprotection. And it's quite interesting, some of the stuff he's doing. And insects are a really cool model to discuss because of how sensitive things that they can detect. It's things like they can detect one compound, 1 part per quadrillion or something, which is 1 with 15 zeros, which is just an insanely sensitive detector. So it's quite cool.
And the research he's doing, it's pretty stretchy, and I think the applications are, by all accounts, potentially huge, right?
Yeah. So the way it can be applied, if it reaches maturity, this type of technology is amazing because it's not a very specific tool. It could affect human health and other things as well. So it's quite an interesting area that he's working on.
So the upshot here is to the listeners, you better check it out, right?
So check out episode 1.
Yeah, and with that in mind too, we really hope that you do listen and enjoy our podcast channel. We hope to put some really great stuff out there, and like I say, we really want to start getting the voices of some of the scientists working in the primary sector out there, and we would love to sort of enlighten you about the kind of work they do and how it's really making a difference. And as the podcast series gets underway too, we'd really welcome feedback from you. You can get in touch with us, and we'd love to hear what you think we're doing well, maybe some things you would like specific podcasts to be on, things you'd like to hear, or maybe things where we can improve. But again, we really hope you enjoy the upcoming podcast series, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.